What's up? Welcome back. Dr. Gene here with
Dr. Reinsman.
And not Ravi.
Ravi
is gone.
Oh no, tear.
We do one video and Ravi leaves. That's how it works. But this week we have Pam here. Pam's gonna be here for how long, Ryan?
6 more weeks.
Pam, where are you from?
I'm from Cincinnati originally. I'm at Ohio State in Columbus right now.
Awesome. So Pam's finishing out her physical therapy rotation with us. Mm-hmm. And is this the last one or do you have more?
This is the last one.
Last one, as was Ravi's. So this is your first week here. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be cool because last week we got to hear Ravi's take on the whole experience from start to finish. He kind of gave us a synopsis. What's your take on your first week here, kind of seeing how we do things and compared to your experience at other places?
One of the biggest things I think is just seeing how scalable everything is to each individual. It's really cool to take a workout for everybody that's programmed for every single person that walks in here, but everyone's version of it is a little bit different. And it's really cool to be able to see that put into practice.
That's pretty cool. We just did a video with Tom, one of our members, and he said something that kind of stuck with me. He said that it's kind of everything's community focused, but individually tailored, which is kind of what you're saying. I think that really resonated with me because we've talked about it a lot, Rai, about focusing on community, but we do tailor to individuals because it has to be everyone. Anatomy, biology, experiences, perceptions, fears, concerns are all unique, even though we have a similar kind of overlying goal, but everyone addresses it uniquely. So that was a really big takeaway for me this week. What about you?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think we probably, as a lot of things we're seeing that get told us by patients and members, is we inadvertently, I think, did that on purpose in a way, from the onboarding process through keeping class sizes relatively small, the 12 to 14, knowing that to be an effective coach, we need to see that. Because from the get-go, we didn't want to do a ton of one-on-one training all the time if it wasn't physio related. But realizing that an effective coach who's really good at what they do can give that individualized, personalized attention within a class really well with that number of people. And if they can't, well, we necessarily want that. And I think also having that background being a physio and a coach allows us to do that relatively well. So yeah, I guess I'd agree with Tom, really big time on that point, from that standpoint.
So what else? We started programming a few things, started running a little bit this week.
Yeah.
Got some interesting reactions from members. I know I got some takeaways from that. What did you see and what are some of your thoughts?
So yes, cycle 4, well, we're on cycle 4. So every beginning of a new cycle, we go through a test week. So that's 5 separate workouts, Monday through Friday. And there's generally themes for the cycle. And one of those themes this time is running, which terrified 80% of people in the gym for the most part, which I'd say is probably pretty accurate for most of the population. Everybody talks about runners being a little bit crazy and everything. I think we forget about the other part of the population that really doesn't like running. And for good reason. Oftentimes it doesn't feel good. And I think the main point we tried to get across, and I guess the theme that I'm seeing with a lot of individuals, is not many people realize that it's not an absolute. I either run or I don't run. For us as physios, we know to get to running, you need to be able to, hop and jump and skip and lift some weights and do all these things that we would consider prerequisites of loading and rehabilitation before you can really get to feel really, really good running. Anybody can run, but it doesn't necessarily feel great. And I don't think a lot of individuals, even our members, made that connection of, they just assumed I'm either a runner or I'm not. And once you give yourself that label, well, then you're never really working on it to improve it as a skill. And I think a lot of that is growth mindset involved too. And that's probably the biggest thing I've seen so far this week in the running examples.
I think it opened up so much of the fear-based mindset, which I think alludes to growth versus scarcity, but also I think it goes back into more of the conversations that we had about how bad the healthcare system can be and instilling these thoughts into people. Because I know I had several conversations with people just telling me they're afraid to run. Not that they can't or necessarily don't want to. It's, I hurt my knee 20 years ago. I hurt my back 50 years ago, and my orthopedic surgeon, my physician, my physical therapist, my chiropractor, put in whatever clinician you want in there, said, I have the worst knees, or my cartilage is gone, or this or that, and it's just instilled this absolute fear of doing it, that it's such a huge block for them to get through, to even just start that, because they feel like if they do it, they will get hurt. And obviously all of them did do it, and I didn't see anybody getting carted off on stretchers.
Or ambulances.
That was good.
Yeah. No, agreed. That's a really huge point. And popping into my head from that is, I'm blanking on the study, but I think it might have been that growth mindset book with Carol Dweck, they looked at a child's best coping with pain long term, especially if significant, was actually looking at the parents' coping mechanism and how they said things to the child. Now, that might scare you a little bit as a parent, but I mean, from how much words matter from a parent to child standpoint, I think we can look at that, like you said, from a healthcare practitioner to patient standpoint, that words play a significant role in how we view ourselves.
Yeah, it's trusted authority figures, right? When somebody tells you something, especially when you have this dichotomy of clinician to patient, it is an authority position, because you go to somebody that you trust because you want to feel better, and then they tell you something like this, and you take it to heart, that they're saying it in your best interest. And I'd like to think most are. They just don't know any better, but they're not. I mean, if you're a clinician and you're saying stuff like this, you're doing a huge detriment to people. So you really need to pick your words carefully. But from a coach perspective, because yes, you're a student in terms of the physio aspect, but you're still a coach and you have experience. How do you address these kind of barriers when somebody's just deathly afraid of something because of myths or just poor information that they got?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying. Just like anything else, running is a skill. If you're learning to cook or to do any other type of skill, it's not all or nothing right away. There are steps that you take to get to that end point, and those steps are going to be different for everyone. And so learning to meet someone at the particular step they're at when they come to see you, and then going from there, I think is a really huge characteristic to have and to be able to look for in someone.
Yeah, for sure. And that support system, right? I think the community aspect of it was because other people were doing it, other people that were afraid as well, that had similar stories, and they said, well, I'm just going to do it, because they trusted everyone else. And this community mindset, I think, pushed people forward. And I think they trust you as a coach, that you'd be willing to say, do this or that. But I mean, it was 32 degrees outside, and windy. They were afraid, and it was windy, and I mean, it was the worst possible conditions to go running, and they still did it. They still jumped off the edge, and it was awesome to see. I think that was really cool to see people working through that.
Meet them at their step, pun intended.
Meet them at their step. So, I mean, that was my takeaway, is choose your words carefully, especially if you're professional dealing with somebody else, especially dealing with healthcare or fitness or something that has lasting repercussions for people. And I think something like that, telling people they have the worst x-ray ever, they have arthritis, that's the craziest you've seen, or you're definitely going to need a knee replacement in 10 years. Things like that you really can't say because the evidence does not support it. So just choose your words carefully. And if somebody did say that to you, just know that it doesn't necessarily mean that there's always other ways around it, and there's other opinions. And if a clinician tells you something, that is an opinion. It's their opinion, and even if they're the senior, most world recognized clinician, it's still their opinion based on their experience and training. So there's always other options.
Tom said it best, community feel is what we strive for here, but it's individualized and tailored to the person in front of us within the environment that the community provides. So it's like we intended to do that.
Yeah. Funny how that works out.
Funny.
Yeah. Welcome to Recharge, man.
Thanks.
You've already been more successful than Ravi.